It's something that we made a decision in 2010 when we were trying to figure out how to get sales, and one of the customers asked if we would do private label, and we built them their own label. They still have it. It's Publix down in Florida, and they wanted to be different. They didn't want the same thing that the other customers were going to have on their shelves, and we said, let's do it. And from there, we've kind of just didn't look back.
You just heard Nathan Bender with Tasteful Selections. Nathan Bender grew up in Columbus, Nebraska, and attended the University of Nebraska Lincoln. Graduated with an ag business degree. After graduating, he moved to Bakersfield, California, where he and his father started growing baby potatoes in 2007. Tasteful Selections has grown from 250 to over 20,000 acres. Nathan started in the farming operation, then managed the packing plant, and is currently the Chief Operating Officer and newly elected President. Nathan serves as a board member for the Bakersfield College Automation, Potatoes USA, California Potato Research, and Tasteful Properties. Nathan and his wife, Malisa, have two amazing daughters, Madelyn, 8, and Morgan, 3. In today's show, we discuss small potatoes. Later in the show, we talk about changing the minds of consumers with nutritional facts about potatoes.
Welcome back to the Our 2 Cents podcast, the show where your local professionals sit down with an array of guests to hear their story and impart some wisdom for both business and life-improving skills. This is your place to hear business and community leaders discuss relevant topics that matter to you.
And welcome to the show today. My name's Troy Burden. This is Our 2 Cents podcast. I appreciate all the listeners out there. And before we get started today, a couple little things that we want to cover. We'd love you to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. That's how we communicate with you, and we'd love to get feedback from you as well. And Our 2 Cents podcast webpage has all of our episodes, so check us out. Nathan, we're happy to have you joining us today. Thanks for being here. I can't wait to get into today's topics, but before we get started today, tell us about the bite-sized story.
Well, first, thanks for having me. The bite-sized story. We grew potatoes. I'm actually from Nebraska, and grew up in a small town, Columbus, Nebraska. We had a farm in a town called Monroe, Nebraska.
Okay.
And these potato growers came. We had cattle, we had corn and beans. And potato growers came by and said, hey, you've got sandy ground. Will you let us grow potatoes on it? And that was my dad's farm, and that was back in the 90s. He ended up doing a lot of potatoes for them for a few years, partnered in their business, exited his own operation to become a partner in their the larger operation, CSS Farms. And at the time, they were growing probably 97% of their business was with Frito-Lay.
Chip potatoes.
Chip potatoes. Yep, big old white chip potatoes. Yep. And we need to diversify. Let's move out west. Bob, will you go start a farm in California? And there was some succession planning, trying to do some stuff out here that didn't work out. He was kind of stuck with a farm that he was trying to make work in Bakersfield, California, building a house, and random interaction where a potato farmer or a packer wanted us to grow baby potatoes. That was in 2006, leading up to 2007. I graduated college in 2006 from the University of Nebraska. Mm-hmm. Moved to San Diego. Was not going to farm. Loved my life on the beach. Was ready to be good. And then Dad calls and says, hey,
I have a plan.
I think this is something you'd enjoy. And really, I didn't want to go to farming chip potatoes, not because it's not, fulfilling. It's not something we had done. It's something I've done for a long time. I wasn't going to go to a corn farm either.
More of a commodity than a specialty.
Yeah, it just wasn't going to be exhilarating to the level that this ended up being, with a couple hundred acres the first year, and by year 2 or 3, we had decided this was going to be something, and we partnered up with a company in Wisconsin to be our sales and marketing arm, RPE. We formed Tasteful Selections with CSS and RPE in 2010. And really it goes back to the interesting part of the story is back in Nebraska, we were growing these chip potatoes, and we would go out and dig them when they were young and do stand counts and check the tuber numbers and do all the agronomy work. And we'd take all the little baby potatoes home and cook them because they were just easy. They were the best. You'd throw them, either boil them or just throw them on the grill.
They were not big enough for chips.
Yeah.
They'd fall through the conveyors, the chains.
Just take them home.
And so you just plow them under, or if there's enough, maybe you sell it for feed. But so you guys, that's how it kind of started.
That's how it started. Of like, these are great. Why can't we go get these in the store?
Right.
And then we had no ambition to do that until 2007. It was so people are doing this.
So was no one doing it back then?
There were people doing it in the U.S. It was not as big of a. It was kind of what was falling through the chains. Some were catching what they caught, and they would just put them all in a bag. Our big thing was we took them and sized them into 5 millimeter increments. And so we have a product that'll cook the same
consistently.
Every potato's cooked or it's not cooked. You're not in between that. And I don't think anyone at that time had the marketing behind it in the U.S. especially. It was an option. It was something they were doing. It was more of that leftover product. It wasn't what they focused on. We didn't grow any big potatoes. It was just baby potatoes. And figuring it out was, that was a whole nother challenge, figuring out yield and equipment to dig it. In Europe, there's a lot of specialty equipment, but here, you're digging russets. You get size, you want yield, you want weight.
Right.
We're selling by the ounce, they're selling by the pound or the 100 pounds. So just a different
So you had philosophy. To really adapt the whole operation for a small potato.
Right.
Regarding the small potato, what do you think the attractiveness is to consumers? Is it the fact that you could throw them in the microwave and have them in 5 minutes? I mean, that's attractive to me. Right. Unfortunately, in the world we live in today, it's all about planning. It's 8:30. It's like, I haven't eaten dinner. We need to get this going. And, to throw a regular baked potato in the oven, you're talking 45 minutes to an hour or whatever the case is. So, you got
to put sour cream and butter and cheese and bacon. And in bedtime, you go, man, what did I just eat? Right. I think it started with something different. So people tried it. And really when I make the joke about a baked potato. We sell A-size potatoes. We actually acquired RPE last year.
Okay.
So the Tasteful Selections world is kind of like brought its marketing team in-house. But they don't breed russet potatoes for flavor. You get russets for size, for density. It's a carb.
Right.
It's a filling carb.
Yes.
Our variety selection is very focused on flavor. That's number one. Color, shape, flavor, yield. And so when you bite into a baby potato that might just have salt and pepper on it, might have, a little olive oil.
Yep.
It's good. It tastes good. And it looks good in a bag. And I think more importantly, it looks good on the plate.
Yeah.
So you want to impress, your girlfriend or your wife or your husband or, wow, that's amazing. It's so simple, 5 minutes, right? It was really simple, but it looks like you slaved for hours and It tastes great. So I think that's kind of it. And then it evolved. So
it definitely looks like a gourmet product. It's kind of like when you go to a fancy restaurant and they got microgreens and really small little maybe squashes or even carrots or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it goes hand in hand, and I can definitely see that. Let's talk nutritional value. I will say this. I've done some research on your webpage. First of all, a lot of information, great information. And, I have hundreds of questions that we won't even get to today, but I learned that the more color, which I've kind of always thought in vegetables, that was kind of the case. So if you got a purple vegetable or a red vegetable, nutritional value is typically higher than maybe it's just a green product. But so am I right? Is the nutritional value of a purple or a red?
Antioxidants.
Antioxidants.
So antioxidants in a purple, and you have to almost take it one step further. The purple. So purple inside, purple outside is going to be really rich in antioxidants. I believe they say it's higher than a blueberry.
Interesting.
I don't know pound by pound or weight.
I understand.
Don't hold me to the scientific facts. More potassium than a banana.
See, that blows me away because nobody, honestly, I like to look at nutritional stuff. I try to eat right. I try to work out and do the right things and put the correct stuff in my body. And I think overall, and you tell me if I'm wrong, potatoes get a bad rap.
Oh, it's unfortunate.
But most potatoes, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of them, it's the product that they make with them. Mm-hmm. potato chips and fried, and yes, there's
baked potato with sour cream.
Right,
onions,
loaded up.
Oh,
it's healthy. I had a baked potato for lunch.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily. It's no different than a salad. You load it up, and it might be worse than a Big Mac at the end of the day. So, but you agree, they do get a bad rap, and they don't talk enough about the nutritional value of that vegetable.
Yeah, and I'm on the U.S. Potato Board, and that's our biggest focus, is trying to change the word or the bad rap that potatoes get, and put the science behind it. We spend a ton of money as a potato industry researching the health benefits of a potato, especially the big push right now is potatoes fuel performance, because it really is really good to do pre or post workout.
I was going to say carbs are still good for you in the right way. Yes, absolutely.
And it's not a bad, like, good carbs and bad carbs, and there's a lot of talk around that, but it is a good, healthy, especially from a sustainability and affordability.
Okay.
For filling you up. There's not a lot of vegetables out there that'll do that for the price point that you'll get potatoes.
Right.
Ours aren't necessarily the most affordable all the time, but still more affordable than some of the other carbs that you're eating.
So I'm assuming that you're farming maybe locally here, but in other states as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. We have made a major, in the last 5 years, I think we've picked up quite a few new locations from Washington, Oregon, Nevada, California, Arizona, Utah, Texas.
Wow.
And moving further east, but so we're kind of farming up and down the West Coast right now. Everything leaves out of Bakersfield as finished product, but we have partner growers in some of those areas. CSS Farms is one of the growers in Washington.
Yes.
We work with some different growers in Idaho, and then we grow probably 90% of the product besides that. So. And
you bring it all to Arvin, and lack of a better word, you process it.
Sure.
Package it.
Clean
it. Store it. So let's talk storage. Mm-hmm. I heard a story once upon a time. This is a fact check that you can tell me that you could actually, and I'm not saying you do this, I'm probably talking more of a chip potato or maybe a baked potato, that they can store them up to a year.
Close.
That's crazy. Close. People have no idea. They just, I go to the store and it's there, and just like they don't realize where milk comes from or whatever. It comes from the store. No, it comes from a dairy, but you get my point. So and
they're getting closer to a year, but 9 or 10 months. But if you think of harvest is usually a couple months.
Yes.
So if you can get a late, so that's the other russet thing. They have early russets, late russets, mid russets, russets that'll store. They're real hardy. Probably don't taste as good. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But they can stretch it almost a year, real close. And that's where Kern County used to be the niche potato spot for the West Coast, because Idaho, Washington would run out of storage. They couldn't make it that long, so they had to come to Kern County to get those fresh potatoes to fill the gap.
Gotcha.
Across the United States. And slowly but surely, as storages improve, as agronomic practices improve in those larger growing areas, the Kern County area has gotten smaller. For us, it's kind of different. We try not to store our product very long. We try to really have a fresh product on the table. Mm-hmm. Once again, flavor, and we're buying with our eyes. Some of our bags are mesh, so you see everything. And so if we can be in and out of our storage within 3 to 4 months, that's our goal. And that is why we go to all those different locations. So we come from Bakersfield, and then we'll go to what we call our summer crop, which will be in the mountain areas of Tonopah, Nevada, or Delta, Utah.
Okay.
And then we'll usually get a late crop in like Washington.
So your point is they're different seasons, so you can be harvesting at all times.
Yeah, we harvest probably 300 days a year. It's just a nonstop operation.
Interesting.
And we're finishing hopefully tomorrow. Well, by the time this airs, hopefully we're done with our spring harvest in Bakersfield, which we always try to finish up right around that first week in July.
How long does it take a potato to mature to picking size? I know it's going to vary.
Our product, usually 60 green days, So 70 to 80 days, depending. Every season's different, but it's a lot shorter season. A chip or a russet might be 120 to 140 days.
Okay. So here's a question that we always talk about, especially in California, is water.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, believe it or not. And, I don't know if it's true or false, but, we've had a lot. We live in Bakersfield, and so ag is our community. It is our industry. Oil and ag is what we are. And, maybe the water police or the people that don't like what we do with feeding the world say, those almond trees take a lot of water. They shouldn't be planting almonds or whatever. Where's the potato thing fall? Does it require quite a bit of water, or is it more of a drought resistant type product?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it drought resistant. A potato's 80% water, so
makes sense.
We definitely need water for it.
I guess all vegetables are really full of water.
Yeah, and the nice part about our crop, it is a short season, so it's not in the ground long.
Yeah.
It doesn't take as long to grow it, which means it requires a lot less water than maybe a full season potato crop. Definitely a lot less than an almond crop. I have almonds. I'm an almond rancher, so
I get it. You're diversified.
But I think that's one of the things that'll provide us sustainability for our business is we aren't going in and requiring a ton of water, so we can farm more locations and more, move around. And we have a short season, so you when water gets tight, you might still be able to do a crop like ours where you couldn't do maybe a carrot crop or a full season crop.
Right. And it's kind of shocking to me. I think the majority of the population, when you say potato, they think Idaho. Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned about 6 or 7 different states that you're farming in, and it's like they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And they like sandy soil, and so if you have it, and depending on your climate, there's a potential opportunity to grow.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. So let's
on that waterfront, if I may, we've been, like I said, we were from Nebraska, and we have a completely different regulation back there than we do in California, and we've been farming pivots and different irrigation methods than here in the Central Valley. And it was kind of a shock to me when we got here and people were still flood irrigating or these sprinklers. The sprinklers aren't bad necessarily, but they're not quite as efficient as
labor intensive
and very labor intensive.
Yes.
It's amazing. And we've put in a lot of linear irrigation systems and a lot of pivots here, even in Bakersfield, but also down in Arizona and up in Nevada. And you get just a better use of your water that way. And so, it's something we've always taken very seriously as stewards of our land and our community is that water recycling, or not the recycling. I'll get to that in a minute, but the water use for our crops. We aren't people that run water out of our fields. You'll see that in some fields where they overwater on purpose to water out of the fields. That's not our practice. We just have a different practice. And then, actually just about a month ago, we just had a grand opening for our water clarifier at our processing plant. Yep. So we are able to, we're working on it. We're probably at 80% reuse, but we're able to get up to 95% reuse of our water, our wash water, back into the plant. We purify it and then it comes back in, which is something we've been trying to do, since we built that facility. We built that in mind. We already had really good equipment for water use. Tried to always think of that when you're building a facility in 2015 in the middle of a drought in California. But now we're actually able to reuse that water, and how effective it's been. It's pretty amazing, and we'll actually get a better product at the end because we'll be washing our potatoes with cleaner water every step of the process. There's about 3 or 4 washes, maybe 5 now, where we wash the potatoes in some sort of water with a final rinse at the end. But if you have clean water at the beginning and every stage through the way, you have less buildup of bacteria and other harmful fun things that happen in water.
And once the water has reached its point that you need to discharge it, do you put it back out onto the product on the field?
Grow crops, yep.
Yeah. Yep. Right. That's awesome sustainability right there. I believe you also did something out there, maybe some type of a power grid?
A small project.
What is that all about?
So we in our facility we have it's about 11 acres under roof, and most of that is cold storage. So we're storing our product that our customers are relying on, and every week and every month that we're packing every day, you have to store those potatoes at 38 degrees, 37 degrees, and you can't let them get warm. If they get warm, they wake up. If they wake up, they'll start sprouting or they'll rot. And with the rolling blackouts and brownouts and just the unstable power from PG&E, we, as a board, we're going to put backup generators in.
Yes.
And so that was the plan. And as we started going down that path and looking at the expense, this kind of microgrid technology just kept popping up. So we have solar batteries and gas-powered natural gas engines that'll run us basically in island mode, and we can produce all the power we need at our facility. So if there was a 3-day brownout, which would completely
spoil,
our business would be over.
Yep.
We couldn't withstand something like that. We would be able to roll through that without a problem. And it should be a cost neutral to a cost savings position. Of course, natural gas has gone up a lot with this new environment, but both ways, it's a great piece. There's actually an add-on for a future piece where we would try to build a digester in to use waste crop from local farmers to actually power our whole facility. So we'd be
from the methane, or
yep. So we'd be off the grid and we'd be, all renewable. So
that's awesome. Cool. And I tell you what, that's in the eyes of America today. Mm-hmm. So you guys are obviously, on the forefront, doing things maybe even proactively where you don't have to, just because that's what you believe is the right thing to do. Yeah.
One other thing that our company did is we actually offset all of our electric for all of our growing regions. The electric that we use is all now offset with natural or solar powered credits, I guess is what you'd say. So we're Green E certified. So every potato we pack between Tasteful Selections and RPE, we've offset the carbon footprint with solar. So another thing we didn't have to do, but feel like it's the right thing and it's the direction and it's where we want to be as a company.
Sure. So since we're kind of going down that road, let's talk organics. Is that a product that you produce?
Yeah. So,
and what percentage of your products are organics? And do you find that is the leading product, or maybe do you think it'll overcome traditional products? What's your thoughts on organic?
I don't think it'll ever overcome traditional products, only because there's still a demand, and I think there'll always be a demand for something maybe at a less value, less cost, and that's good. We traditionally don't use a whole lot of chemicals in a short season crop,
right?
So for us, organics it's a great fit. We've started doing organics, I believe, 5 years ago with our first couple hundred acres. We are now 40% of our acres this year will be organic. Now our sales are trending about 20%.
Yes.
And that's been that way. We've slowly built it up. It was, 10%, 15%. And we really thought, and actually this is the first year we've done it. Let's rip the Band-Aid off, guys. Let's go all in on organics, and let's make sure our customers have organics 12 months out of the year, 52 weeks, never let them out. Cause that's the problem. When you have them, they buy them way more. They say they want a load a week, then they take 2 loads a week. Then they're mad when you run out. And so they won't come in and say you need 3 loads. But we said, well, if you're selling 2, we'll grow 4,
right?
And we'll see if you can sell 3,
right? And
then next year, if you sell 3, we'll grow for 4 or 5 and get you up there. And it's been a huge hit. It's something we do that it's going to be really hard for others to compete, because we have that model of always harvesting. The problem with organics is you can't use common chemicals to keep them in storage. That's the way Idaho keeps them in storage. They put the potatoes to sleep with chemicals, and we don't do that on our organics or our conventionals. So we don't need to, which gives us a leg up. And it's really why we keep pushing harder on organics from both the, marketing perspective. We have a good, healthy product. We have the perfect model for it. I think it's the perfect product for it, as well as like carrots,
right.
Things that, aren't necessarily the hardest to grow.
So educate me here. At first sight or thought, I would think maybe organics could be more profitable because you're not having to use pesticides and fertilizer. But then the other side, sometimes when you're not using some of those effective methods, you have less yield and maybe more waste. Is that an accurate statement?
It absolutely can be. And that's why I say we have such a ideal product for it, because our short growing season lends to a healthy plant.
Right. You're out of the ground before the bugs really catch on.
Yeah. Now that doesn't mean that there haven't been problems.
Sure.
And that was kind of the commitment when we needed to make that commitment as a company, so we could give the resources to the agronomy team and make sure we had the agronomy team and the grower network to make sure that we had the tools. And we've been trialing a lot of things. And really if we were stumbling, we were doing okay, but it wasn't near what this year's, we've had a really great year this year, successful organic season. And I think it's a testament to soil health and really treating the ground the way it needs to be,
right?
And building that up. And that's the story with organics. Anybody you talk to about organics that's really successful talks about really it is more expensive. You have to put more compost on. You have to put more natural fertilizers out there. You have to if there's a weed problem, you're hand weeding. You're not.
It's called a hoe.
Yeah, exactly. So it can be a more challenging crop, but to me that's fun, right? Let's do what others say can't be done, and that's always been one of our things. Who's going to go build a potato plant after 2 years in Bakersfield growing spuds,
right,
and put it out in Arvin and where all the big boys are, and
right,
and be successful, and so that's just kind of our motto. Just go for it.
I like what you're doing. So I'm going to springboard off of that. Why Arvin? And maybe you just said that. There's nothing wrong with Arvin. I mean, I got all kinds of customers out there right down your road. So, but why'd you choose Arvin?
Oh, because after a year and a half of looking for a location, one of your customers came up and said, well, if you want, you could just do it on my land.
Really?
And we said, I think that's a great idea. And we were trying to find the perfect little spot, and everything at the time, the prices were so high. It's nice to have a potato farm or a potato packing plant out in the middle of nowhere somewhat.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
You can't put it in town.
Right.
It's out where a lot of our fields are. It's kind of out,
Your employees probably pretty local in that
lot
area.
Of local employees. We've actually have employees that have been with us since we were in Bakersfield. So they'll travel for the right job, for the right people, for the right company. But
sure.
We feel that it feels like we just picked a spot on the map, but there was just kind of dumb luck that after all this search, and we're just talking to local farmers, and well, why don't you build it on my plant or my land? It's like, oh, that's a good idea. So
that's very cool. Like I said, I watched it all happen, and I know you're continuing to expand it. I was out there meeting with some of your folks on insurance, 6 months ago, and there was massive construction going on. And I think that's probably a pretty standard deal. So let's talk about that facility. How many employees are you employing out there these days? Just roughly.
I think at the facility, it's somewhere around 800.
And when you first broke ground in 2010, obviously you've been scaling up and scaling up. And from I recall, you went from 1,200 acres to 18,000 acres in that period of time.
Yeah, and this year will be somewhere in 22,000, somewhere around that range. But we're trying to drive that number down with efficiency.
Yes.
So my farm guys we were jotting on the board earlier about how we can get down under 20,000 acres if we do this, this, and this. And so that's a goal. It seems a lot of people would want to have more acres. We want to get more efficient.
Well, more efficiency, yeah. I get it.
Higher hundredweight sales. That's what we want, but lower total acres to watch and water. And
so I don't know when this happened. I reached out to you when it did. So Inc. Magazine 5,000 annual list of America's fastest growing companies. You guys were ranked number 3644, and a 3-year growth was 93%. Mm-hmm. Pretty proud of that. You should be too, just knowing that there's a company, family-owned business in Bakersfield in the ag community that's just known nationally. That's awesome.
It's pretty incredible. We
might have been on second. I think you've done this before.
We've done it 3 times. Okay. Our current CFO, Celeste.
Yep.
When she came on, she's like, "Man, we should apply for this." And we're like,
"What is it?"
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Why not? Like, if you know, and that's the fun part is she's like, "Man, we should have been on it for 3 years prior." Just when you start something small,
sure,
and with rapid growth, like we've been fortunate enough to have, it's kind of hard to look back and imagine, and we've been doing a lot of that lately. But not long ago, we were just in the back of a rented facility with a couple lines and trying to make it work. To now, nationally, we're the largest grower, shipper, packer of baby potatoes.
You are number one?
Oh yeah.
Is there quite a few competing with you?
Yeah, the competition's really gotten better, which is good for the actual industry. We appreciate that. When you put a bad product out there, you give the whole product line a bad kind of reputation. So yeah, there's definitely a lot more competition in the last 5 years than there was the previous. But as we always like to tell our employees, that if we do what's right for our customers, we don't give them a reason to ever leave us. All the competition in the world, like we may lose a customer because of price or because of something else, location, but it's amazing how within 6 to 8 months that customer's back. And that's because we deliver on quality, we deliver on
right.
We do things right. And when you do things right, and you go to somebody who doesn't, we've all gone for the discount, and then decide that wasn't worth it, and we come back for it. And quality of service sales. When you're selling something, you need something quality to sell. Something that's not quality isn't going to move.
Well, and the things we've talked about today, you have a story behind this, and there's a lot more than just small potatoes. I mean, you're a great employer. You're preserving the world that we live in. You're respecting the land. You're doing a lot of great things, and if you like it or not, people like that. Mm-hmm. We obviously, I know that you believe in oil because we live here together, but if in most part people think oil's terrible and it should be gone, and that's a whole nother discussion, but it gets a bad rap. And when they see someone like you, and back to your webpage, I mean, like 100% recyclable and compostable paper packing. I mean, everything you're doing says we're doing it right.
Yeah, we haven't been real good at telling our story per se. Like we're farmers. I mean, I did sales and all this other stuff.
Nathan, sometimes you got to staff your weaknesses, and you guys have went from small potatoes to big boys, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you're doing a good job. I mean, I've learned a lot, but yes, I got to be able to find you, and that leads into the next question. Where do people? I've eaten your product. I believe it's at Sam's Club, and that's where I've noticed it. I think Vaughn's and Albertsons have it, but
Costco.
Are you selling
Sprouts,
to all the big boys?
Whole Foods.
Yep.
Now, what's funny is we don't do Trader Joe's here. We do Trader Joe's on the East Coast. So you gotta understand the dynamics of everything. But
I get it.
We do 100% of Kroger's private label.
Okay.
So if you've
so you are doing some private label product too.
Yeah, a lot of our products private label. It's something that we made a decision in 2010 when we were trying to figure out how to get sales, and one of the customers asked if we would do private label, and we actually gave them their own private label. We built them their own label. They still have it. It's Publix down in Florida.
Okay.
And they wanted to be different. They didn't want the same thing that the other customers were going to have on their shelves. And we said, let's do it. And from there, we've kind of just didn't look back on private label. And I think it's what's made us different, and we're unique to the region. Not a lot of farmers are in California that are growing a specialty crop that goes retail 52 weeks out of the year. You're looking in Idaho for russets, but that Idaho russet guy only has a few customers.
Right.
We have 19 of the top 20 retailers that we sell to every day of the week, and they come and pick up things in the Central Valley because we have such an abundance of vegetables and fruits that then get on trucks that might go to Florida, they might go to Boston, wherever they may be. We've been very fortunate. It wasn't by accident. We did pick Bakersfield because of that, but it's been fun. I wanted to plant in San Diego. I can't imagine that they didn't think that was going to work, but the land would have been worth a lot.
The land would have been worth a lot.
We could have retired on the land probably.
How about export? Are you guys exporting product?
We do a little bit. It's interesting because it always comes up, we should be exporting this. And in the past, especially, we couldn't keep up with growth in the U.S., let alone try to build up more to export. But if you go to certain locations, I've had people, when they're on random trips in little islands all over the world, they'll send me a picture of our product on the shelf in these little grocery stores.
Right.
And that's fun. But we don't do a lot of it. It's a very niche market.
Yeah. Another thing that our dear friend Morgan Houchin told me to ask you about is robotics. And I know robotics is becoming more and more common in the ag world because they don't call in sick, and although we need employees, but it could definitely make you more efficient in a lot of ways. What kind of robotics are we using out there in your facility?
Yeah. And the way I've always looked at automation and robotics, it's not about necessarily reducing labor. It's about a different skill set of labor.
Okay.
I've got 16 engineers on staff now, where I had 0 before. So, I'm running 3 shifts, 5-6 days a week. We've got palletizers that pick up 50-pound boxes, 20-pound boxes, and put them on a pallet. Tell me that's a good job.
Right.
I mean, not a lot of people are signing up for that job.
No.
And to do it 52 weeks a year.
No.
Seasonal, okay, I'll do it for a couple months. But to do it every day, all day, and you're right, there's no back injuries. There's no, work loss type injuries going on. So we have all of our I think there's 2 lines missing, but almost all of our lines have palletizers. A couple lines have what we call case packers, where we take the potatoes that are in the bag and put them in the box. That's a tricky one with the 350 SKUs of potatoes that we have. Lots of different types of packaging, but we're getting there. We're gonna get there because it's the same thing. How many times do you want to sit and do that all day long? We have automatic sorters that grade the potatoes, and really, what's been exciting the last few years is everything we grow, we harvest into little. I shouldn't say little. They're about 1,000 pounds. They're plastic bins.
Okay.
People in Bakersfield are probably very familiar.
Sure.
You see them down the road with fruit and everything else. So we harvest into those bins at the facility, and that was all done with forklifts. So it would fill the bin, and then the forklift would take it. Forklift would bring an empty bin in. It was just crazy. And so we worked with a company over in Belgium, and we have a fully automated bin handling system that brings the empty bins in, gets them filled, gets them weighed, gets them stickered, and sets them inside for the forklifts to put them in the rooms. When the products needed to be washed, they set it on a conveyor. It goes in, is lifted up, goes through, is weighed, unstacked, put through a wash system, all without, and then the empty bins are exited out the building without using a forklift. And it's so nice because those were always broke down.
Oh yeah.
Always, it was a tough job. Everybody, it was go. And now it's automation slows everything down.
Sure, less dangerous.
You get more out. Like your throughput went up.
Yep.
But this is running so slow. Well, it's because there's not 12 forklifts
right.
buzzing around trying to get things done. So it's a lot safer for the employees. We've
Absolutely.
really, when we designed the facility, we tried to separate our employees from any forklifts. And so you'll see a lot of mezzanines around our facility in areas where forklifts can't touch, get
yes.
to people. And that's always been one of my big things as I look at facilities all around the world is how do they protect their employees? Because if it's in California, it was in Europe 5 years before that or 10 years before that. And so that's where the water recycling comes from. That's where some of the water handling systems, that's where the employee safety stuff, a lot of that stuff it comes from, it's not just California. It's been elsewhere.
Sure. Well, I'm sure there's a price for that, but I'm sure the efficiencies pay for itself pretty quick.
Yeah, I think the nice thing is we're working with Bakersfield College, we're working with CSUB to get their young engineers in and interns. In fact, our internship program last year, we had 14 interns and 10 of them now are full-time employees at Tasteful Selections in just
awesome.
a year.
That's awesome.
So it's really cool to see, and some of them are just great employees. They just had their 1-year anniversary today. They were hired, I think 6 of them were hired on in June, and they had their 1-year anniversary today. But we're seeing these young engineers, and even if they go on to go work at Amazon and whatever,
sure,
they get a chance to understand ag. They get a chance to work with robots, and we've got really great, high-level engineers that are training them up and really preparing them for a life past, beyond Tasteful Selections. Some of them stick around and they love it, and that's what we want. But we also want what's best for the employees. Can't keep everybody happy, but
sure,
provide that roadblock, that next stepping stone for them.
Well, I will say this from watching you, following you on social media, and some of your key people out there. You do a great job of recognizing people. Michelle and I were talking before you walked in that you just had, I think it was a birthday. You celebrate birthdays every month. Mm-hmm. And I know I see the employee of the month, whatever. I also know that there's a lot of opportunity. I think your webpage yesterday showed 22 openings, and that's career openings at probably a pretty high level position. There's probably more jobs than that available, but and I know everyone's having a hard time filling people right now, for sure, especially technical people. But is this because of growth that you have all these openings? What's your story on that?
Yeah, it's a combination. I think where we've tried to, our company grew really fast for a few years, and we all held on for the ride. And as we grew, the company grew before we couldn't backfill. We didn't have bench strength. As we like to, everyone talks about having bench strength. It was like, no, I do 90% of the work. What are you talking about bench strength? We don't have a bench. Everybody's at 100 and we go. So we're trying to get to that. A lot of this is building out infrastructure. We have a whole data and IT and engineering team that is phenomenal. And we brought in one of the best to run that. And I'm not even going to say his name on here because I don't want anyone to try to steal him. But
good idea.
He comes in from Wisconsin, and we're going to have this data management like you talked about earlier. It's the next wave of what we can do with how do we tell our story, and you're gonna see our next wave of packaging come out with QR codes that'll get you to the farmer, that'll get you to our sustainability story, or get you to a website linked with recipes, things like that we've talked about in the past, but we didn't have the resources to really follow through and get it done. And now we have those resources. We're building those resources. So you'll see a lot of openings, which is fun for us. We just moved. We have an office building right here in town. We're in Bakersfield and in Arvin, so depending on and across the country. But we're trying to build bench strength. We have a real need for farm bench strength. We have a few accounting positions open and a few HR and payroll that, it's growth, right? You go from 1,100 employees to 1,200 employees to
Right.
And so, we may have 800 at the facility, but we have all these farms that we staff up as well.
Sure. And do you use some farm labor contractors as well?
Yeah.
I think everybody does these days.
Yeah, it's, though our seasons are
right
52 weeks of the year, we're also temporary in locations. So we might only be in Arizona for 6 months.
Makes sense.
So H2A and
you have H2A as well.
Yeah, we've really found that. So we have a ranch in Dyer, Nevada.
Okay.
Have you been to Dyer, Nevada?
No,
and most people haven't. I hadn't been to Dyer, Nevada until I had to go stick a fork in the ground and see what it was all about, because we were buying a ranch in Dyer, Nevada.
I don't know that I've ever heard the name Dyer.
Yeah, it's just past Bishop.
Okay.
So it's probably another 45 minutes or so, the next valley over.
Okay.
It's not a big town, but that's there's nobody out there to work on harvest and planting and irrigation. So we bring in H2A labor. We actually started putting up some housing and things. So we're really trying to do right by the community and build a place not only for our labor, but put soccer fields, things like that for the whole area.
Sure.
To make it a place for a really small town that doesn't have a lot.
Yeah.
And this, let's have a soccer league or whatever for the town, basketball courts, things like that. So
that's awesome. So when I was reviewing your webpage, I noticed under your varieties that you had, I don't know, I'm just going to guess, 25 different varieties. And I know we have colors, we have gold and red and white and purple and so on and so on. You have fingerlings and so on. What determines what product you put in the box? Is it maybe, like you said, I need to store some product a long time, so maybe this variety will store longer than that variety? Or is it maybe demographic wise, like, hey, in Nebraska, this is really all we can grow there because of whatever temperatures or soil conditions? What's the story behind that? Or do you just, because you don't sell, because you combine all your products, right? Do you sell just reds or just whites or just golds?
Yeah,
you do.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have 350 SKUs. We have 8 sizes of potatoes, which is mind-boggling because the biggest size is what we call in the industry like a B-size potato, which would be smaller than a baseball.
Yeah.
So there's 8 sizes, including that size. Then we have like maybe 2 or 3 yellow varieties that we use, but we try not to have too many unless there's a certain variety that grows really well in an area, because we don't want you to have a different experience each time you try our product. So if you buy a bag of yellow potatoes, I want it to taste the same 52 weeks out of the year. And we take great pride in doing that and having a consistent quality, consistent size. And you take all those varieties that you saw, and then you have to double them because we do them in organic as well. And that's fun. The plant, I call it the plant, but where our storage and our, our facility, they sure love the complexity. I think we have 20. We have the ability to put 25 packing lines in, and I think we have 22 of them as of today. So it's kind of crazy to think that that's what goes into potatoes, but it does.
Well, that complicates everything, because I thought everything you did was just kind of a trio, a red, white, and blue, if you will.
Yeah.
And that's not the case, obviously.
No.
And then different sizes and stuff.
And like every customer wants something different. So Costco takes a 5-pound bag of red and yellow.
Right.
I think Sam's is a 5-pound bag of red and yellow. Kroger's 1.5 pounds. Whole Foods is 1 pound of, what we call the nibble, which is the smallest potato in the world. It's 17 to 22 millimeter potato. It's about 1% of our total crop, but it's pretty cool. I should have brought some here for you. We'll send some over. They're hard to find in the stores. Mostly Kroger and Whole Foods carry them.
Okay.
But then Sprouts, they have a completely different bag than all of these other customers. So every customer has their own wants and desires, and we try to be flexible.
Well, Nathan, I will tell you this, and I'm going to get into just a couple more items, but I've learned something today, Michelle, that small potatoes is big business. So very interesting. And this is what we love about the podcast, talking about entrepreneurships. You and your father having the vision to do what you did. and to see where you are today and get recognized from Inc. magazine and so on, and being recognized by the community. And I know you also give back. You're part of the Bakersfield College Automation program on the board. Talk a little bit about that.
So I was asked to be on that board when they were bringing the major to Bakersfield College. Okay. So I was part of the first crop of freshmen that went through the program. I'm on the board, but I also let my engineering team, they have a little more expertise. I like to lend my overview to the board, but I don't necessarily have a clue what engineering classes they need to take. And but what I do is try to influence them to not forget about robotics, not forget about agriculture, because a lot of it is oil and pipelines and that kind of engineering and automation versus both. And so there's a few other farmers, local ag businesses that are helping that. But it for me, it was all about, I knew what we were trying to do. And with that comes a need of high-tech engineers. And we need a fresh crop of people that have that desire to figure out how to put that bag in that box. And in fact, we had a graduate, I believe one of the graduates, that was kind of his project, and then came to work full time for us. And I believe he's still there today, but that was kind of his project, and we have one of the lines that our engineering department built, putting the bag into the box, and it's still running today. And now we have another firm working on the more complex lines, but it's great that we can challenge. So they do senior projects. They come to, we usually take one group of senior projects, and whether it's almost our whole facility is automated. So when we load the potatoes, we have these big, for lack of a better term, tanks, and we have a conveyor that goes down into the tank and has sensors that brings it up and back, and it's all done with sensors, lasers. Yep. And so they have to find ways to improve on that, or the conveyor that comes out and the sensors, and there's way more than I could ever talk about, which is why I have the engineers come to those meetings, because I'm like, oh yeah, the sensor thing. But it's fun because that's what they love, and we can provide that in a different environment than they maybe thought they would ever be involved with in ag, and they get a taste of ag. Some love it, and they come and they want to work there forever. Sure. And there's not everybody in our area or outside of our area is involved in ag anymore. This is a bigger town than it was, a bigger city than it used to be. So it's fun when we're able to bring someone that maybe didn't know as much about ag, and they really fall in love with it.
No, and it's interesting. There's some charter schools that are, I don't want to say they're ag based, but they're founded by ag people, and they're in their communities. And I do business with them, and it's interesting because when you talk to the kids, there are different types of kids, and what I found is their parents wanted them to do nothing with ag because that's what their parents have done. Mm-hmm. And when you start studying that discussion, you realize technology is in ag big time now, and we need engineers, and you need high technical people. It's not all hands-on hard labor with a shovel like it was when our grandfathers broke the ground, in the roaring 20s. And I had CTEC, ROC on this podcast, and talking about all those classes and getting people to understand that there's such an opportunity out there. And it, like I said, it's not pulling weeds. It's not just driving a tractor. Yes, those are jobs, but it's mechanics and engineering, and of course, robotics and automation. And it's so high tech now. So, getting that across to the younger generation in those trade schools or those charter schools that I mentioned, they're doing a great job at it. And they're, when I look at all the big people like yourself or the big ag people and look at the job openings, these are technical jobs. Mm-hmm. It didn't say you're hiring 40 guys for the weeds crew. Although you might need that.
We might need those guys too.
but that is awesome. So what is your role, Nathan, with Potato USA and California Potato Research? What is those organization?
So Potatoes USA that's the kind of overarching board that, as a potato grower, you fund through your potato sales, kind of a research division. So, and it's not always research like we might think of it. It might be for health reasons. It might be for, if there's a bug or a pest or something that's, imminent to create harm, we have funds that we can direct to point to that.
Got it.
So it's a pretty large organization. A lot of growers across the United States. You talked about Idaho, but Pacific Northwest, Oregon and Washington and Wisconsin and Nebraska, Texas, Florida, up and down the eastern seaboard, there's tons of potatoes grown, and we all come together as an industry to really push the potatoes, make sure we're getting a voice when some of these studies come out that just kind of blanket potatoes when they're talking about the bad use of potatoes versus good use of potatoes. Right. So it's an advocacy group. There's, I think I'm on my 6th year on the board.
Okay.
There, I just got reelected, so very exciting. But it's fun. It's a nice way to network with other.
Just how you learn
people, and we do talk about really important things that are facing all of us in the potato industry.
Challenges, absolutely.
Weights of trucks. I mean, just you name one of the challenges, and it's one of the main key things we're working on. Yeah.
Well, Michelle, you get to work with this guy every day, but I will tell you, I thought I knew a lot about potatoes, but I found out I know nothing. And it's very interesting, and I'm proud to meet you both and what you're doing here locally. And it was just brought to my attention, I believe, that you, Nathan, the COO of Tasteful Selection, is now considered the president of Tasteful Selection. So congratulations on that promotion, or maybe you're going to wear both hats, but congratulations. That's awesome, and we really appreciate you. So ladies and gentlemen, we have Nathan Bender, COO and president of Tasteful Selections. Nathan, thank you for your time and the education today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The show has been brought to you by the Law Office of Kyle Jones, Troy Burton with the Lynn Company, CPA John Duffield, Scott Hansen Real Estate Lender, broker and investor, and Dave Plivlich, president and CEO of the Marcom Group and MarcomBranding.com. You've been listening to the Our 2 Cents podcast. Check out the show notes for links and more information about the show. Also visit our website at our2centspodcast.com or catch us on Instagram at Our 2 Cents Podcasts. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share with others.